Well, spring has sprung, and with it, hotter weather and an increased demand for water. Rand Water, which is the bulk supplier of water to many municipalities in Gauteng and beyond, is warning we need to curtail our usage or face water cuts. And I'm joined now by Makenosi Maroo, who speaks for Rand Water. Thank you so much for joining us. I wonder if you could just give us the current situation. We've been hearing for quite a few days that there are going to be shortages. Where are we regarding our water usage?
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to your viewers. Sally, we have noticed that the increase in terms of consumption in different provinces, Gauteng, parts of Mpumalanga, Northwest, and the Free State, but particularly in Gauteng with regards to the city of Tshwane. We know that some areas and some suburbs were without water for some time. That is due to high consumption.
And is that almost over, or is that something that could continue to be a problem in days to come?
You know what, Sally, around this time, from spring up until end of summer, it's a peak season for us as rainwater. So the consumption tends to be quite high, and obviously it strains our distribution network. So we always appeal around this time to all water users to use water sparingly to ensure that we don't have water shortage in our areas of supply.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was this time last year, and we were having problems with the hot weather suddenly coming on, and then a lot more water being used. If I'm not mistaken, you as a bulk water supplier had to get special permission from government to be able to release more water from the dams to the municipalities. My understanding is you only have a contract to supply certain amounts of water. Do you think that that might have to happen again?
Sally, you are correct. Around this time, we were still appealing to consumers to use water sparingly, and we were given the license to abstract more. I don't see it happening again this year. But what we are appealing to municipalities is to introduce level 1 water restrictions in various areas.
Yeah, so you're basically saying consumers need to consume less. The reality, though, is we do use more water when it's hot. We also know that a lot of people are flooding into our metros every single month, so we're dealing with an increasing population. Is there any discussion about increasing the limit that Rand Water can extract from the dams?
Yes, there is that discussion ongoing with the Department of Water and Sanitation, but also we are appealing to municipalities. If there is a huge demand or a high consumption, they need to indicate to Rand Water that we're having more demand, therefore please increase our supply. So there is an agreement that we sign annually with each municipality that we supply. So if the municipality is observing a high consumption, they need to come back to Rand Water to renegotiate the contract.
I've also got to ask you about the fact that we are now once more in stage 6 load shedding. That's at least 9 hours without power a day. We know that a lot of businesses have alternatives when the power is out. But how, at this point, is Rand Water coping with those increased power outages?
All right. Sally, we are fortunate as Rand Water. We are not impacted at our primary and secondary pumping stations. At the primary, that's where we purify water. So that process of purifying water is not impacted by load shedding. However, from time to time, we do experience power trips and power dips, and we negotiate and communicate with power suppliers to come in to fix the problem as soon as possible. However, at our tertiary pump stations, we don't have an agreement with power suppliers. Therefore, we do experience load shedding like any other company. However, we have generators in place. But you'll understand that to run a tertiary plant, it takes a lot of power. So we do have generators, but they don't last for long. So we are appealing to Eskom also to give us that reprieve.
Talk to me about these tertiary stations, which you say are not exempt from load shedding. Where do they fit into the cycle of you drawing the water out of the dams, purifying it, and then sending it off to municipalities?
All right. So maybe let me start at the primary. That's where we purify, as I indicated, and then we move to secondary pumping stations. We have 4 of them: the Palmit, your Palmit, and your other 3 stations. So once we have water for these 2, where we are exempted from load shedding. It goes into different reservoirs where we are supplying municipalities. That is where we are not exempted from load shedding. That's where our generators kick in.
Mm-hmm. And are you experiencing any
Yes.
problems as a result of load shedding at those tertiary pumps at this point?
At this point, no, we're not, because our generators are kicking in. At the primary and secondary, your Palmeet and your other stations, we are not experiencing it all. So the generators, they kick in once load shedding starts.
All right. And just as we close, can you update us on what's going to happen in the next few days? You say that residents are being urged to use less water. That didn't work last year. You mentioned that Tshwane's already had some dry taps. What is going to happen over the next few days? Are all areas currently restored, or are they going to be restored?
Some areas have been restored. It's a gradual process, Sally. High-lying areas, it will take time for them to get water, but we are restoring and areas are beginning to get water. What we have requested municipalities to do is to introduce level 1 restrictions so that people conserve water. What do we mean when we say level 1 restrictions? It means people are not allowed to use hose pipes. They are prohibited from watering gardens between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. During the summer months, so between September and March, 31st of March.
Yeah, and I suppose that means that if you're lucky enough to still have water, really consider your neighbours and neighbouring suburbs that might not, because you're using water that might ultimately be available for them. So it all really works together, and we have to help each other out. Just, I suppose, as Eskom says, that during the hours of 5 to 9 p.m, switch off your geysers, switch off your pool pumps, use water sparingly as well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Makenosi Maroo, who speaks for Rand Water, indicating there are still problems in the system and it does take a few days to come back. And in the meantime, all we can do is appeal to all of us to use as little water as possible. All right, still to come.